Welcome back, everybody. Today's the day where we throw everything back in the car and see if I fix my problem. I've spent the last 2 weeks crushing this thing, and I've got the engine all put back together, and the transmission I had sent back to the guy who built it. He tore it all apart to check to make sure everything inside was still good. We think we know what the problem is now, but we're not 100% sure. So I'm going to show you what we think the problem is. Here's where we feel the problem was. Now, with advanced adapters, whenever you put a TH400 behind an LS, there's only like 2 cranks out of all the LS motors. One is if you have I think it's a 6 liter with cast iron heads. It's got a different crank. The crank's a little longer, so you don't need this spacer. The other one is a 4.8 liter. I think it's a 4.8 that has a manual transmission mounted to it. Also has a different crank, so you don't need this spacer. But most of the cranks in the LS motors require this spacer because the cranks are shorter in these than the old like 350s and 305s. So if you want to put a TH400 behind an LS, you need to buy this adapter. And some of the 6 liter flex plates, like my flex plate actually works the same as the advanced adapters. I didn't know that until I bought it, and I realized this has the same dish to it that my 6 liter already had. But because I paid for it, I can't return it. I'm using it. It's a little bit, it's supposed to be better quality than the factory stuff anyway. But this spacer right here, right on the end of your crank, the pilot from your torque converter fits inside that. And that's what spaces it all out properly, so that you don't get a weird wobble or anything to it. That way you know your torque converter is true inside the end of your crank. Well, for clearance reasons, when I stick this in the end, it's bottomed out right now on the crank. But I still have a gap between my torque converter and the flex plate. Okay, it's like about 1/8 of an inch. Well, that flex plate can no longer flex if the torque converter was to push forward. Right? It's supposed to have a little bit of give so that the flex plate can do exactly what it's supposed to do and flex a little bit and then come back. With it bottomed out already, and if I just went through my bolts in there, it's going to actually bend the flex plate forward, and the starter won't engage properly and stuff like that. But I had put I put a washer between my flex plate and torque converter last time I put it in. But now that only left me with about 1/8 of an inch to pull out before it bottomed out on the transmission. So the transmission, between the transmission and the torque converter, only had about 1/8 of an inch of play. And they say 1/8 of an inch is the absolute bare minimum. You should actually have a little bit more. And they recommended like 3/16 to 1/4 inch even. So my problem, I feel, lies within that spacer. And the only way I can think to fix it isn't exciting to me. And I'll show you what I'm thinking. I have never done this before, so I could be screwing another crank here, but if I don't do it, I feel like I'm going to screw another crank regardless. So I'm going to pop that spacer out. I'm going to take my grinder and carefully just go around and take a little bit of material off and put the spacer back in, and we'll see how much room we have. Well, I have to say, after machining some of that off, I'm going to say machining, I feel much better about this. I was actually able to get it very, very even. And after hammering it back in, the light. I definitely closed up the gap at the back of the spacer, so the whole spacer sits further in. And now there's just like the most minor of gaps, like it's almost touching. That's how close it is. So I can probably, for how close that is, I can probably just bolt it and it'll bend the flex plate out just the slice a little bit, but probably not enough where the starter's gonna not engage properly. And I'm gonna mount the transmission up to it right now too, and then we can check to see exactly how much spacing we have between the torque converter and the tranny. So here's the spacing I'm talking about. Between the torque converter and the flywheel. Like, see how it almost touches the flywheel now? But when I pull it back, that's all I got. Now it's bottomed out in the tranny. So I mean, that's about 3/16, not quite a 1/4 inch. Ideally, I think I'd like to have a little bit more, but it's all she's given me. So I don't know what I measured before, because I had less than this before, and this is like the minimum you want now. Mistakes are made sometimes. I could have swore I had it spaced correctly, but as I put it together now, it doesn't seem to be the case. So, I mean, live and learn. It was an expensive mistake. But I mean, you know, I guess I'm here to make the mistakes so you don't have to. But it should be better now. I'm definitely going to keep an eye on it, because every so often what I can do is I can grab the balancer on the front and I can measure my end play to see if all of a sudden I'm getting more end play, which means my thrust bearing is getting taken out again. And if that's the case, hopefully I can catch it before it wipes the crank out again. I mean, bearings are cheap, cranks not as much. But anyway, moving forward, I'm gonna get this thing put in today. I wanna fire it today. I wanna drive it today. So that's the plan. So plans change. I didn't get to drive it. It's now day 2. We didn't drive it yesterday. We had a few more things to button up today. So the engine's in. She's all good to go. We've got oil in it, coolant's in it, and now we're gonna fire it for the first time. And we will take it for a drive today if all checks out well. So, see what happens. It's fired up so much better. It's running so much smoother than it ever has. I can't help but think that the fuel injectors played the biggest role in all that. It sounds like I might have a little bit of a lifter tick right now, but that's because we need a chance to build up the oil pressure a little bit more. Other than that, it's running great. So we're just going to check all of our levels, training level, stuff like that, and take it for a spin. Ryan and I, we just took this thing out for a quick little break-in period, if you want to call it that, and we noticed some definite improvements. This thing has woken right up, and I'm pretty sure it's because of the injectors. Problem, the transmission, the guys who I sent the transmission back to get checked out, they blew it all apart, checked everything out, put it back together. I don't have reverse, so we need to be careful as to where we stop, because I can't back up. But we're gonna go play around, and we're gonna show you just how different this thing is now. Pretty much, I'm thinking it's 100% because
injectors. But wow, like this thing is, it's a hot unit right now. So we are gonna have some fun. Closed course. We're on a closed course.
Yes.
We're not hooligans. We don't mess around in town. We go out to where it's safe. Closed roads. Oh, it's so much different.
She is spicy.
And this is still on wastegate. This is still just 6 pounds. It got to 60 kilometers an hour, no problem. Okay, so what did we learn? Don't cheap out on your injectors. Your injectors will cause you more headaches than it's worth. So spend some money, get some good injectors, because that's what was causing a lot of the problems the whole time, apparently. Think it'll do a second gear burnout?
Easily.
Place to try second gear.
I would consider that a successful drive. Engine and turbo wise, everything is functioning exactly the way it should be. And definitely the injectors were an issue because really engine wise, that's the only thing we changed, and it is performing way, way better. So if you come across these cheap Chinese 80-pound Deca injectors, if you're paying $100 for a set of 8, you're not going to be happy. So engine-wise, I'm happy with where everything's at. We're going to turn it up once we're on the dyno. Tranny-wise, looks like the tranny's coming back out. They were supposed to, when they had the transmission apart, they were supposed to have inspected everything and beefed up the 2-3 shift because it was really sluggish going from 2-3. My first to second shift was nice and crisp, but my 2-3 shift was really sluggish. Now, my 2-3 shift is still sluggish. When I downshift from second to first, I don't even feel it downshift. You used to feel it like slow you down. And I have no reverse, which is the biggest problem. So I'm going to be getting in contact with the tranny shop tomorrow and find out what happened. Hopefully we don't have to pull the transmission to do it. I'm hoping I can just bring the car to them. They can put up on their lift, pull the pan off, and deal with it that way. That would be the ideal thing. Hopefully it's a simple fix. Because it shifted fine before, now it doesn't. And I'm not quite sure what they did. But other than that, it's running great. Oil pressure is good. Engine temp is good. The power is there now. Like I can do first gear burnout, second gear burnout, third I didn't try, but we'll get to that. But that's it for today. I'm happy with where we're at, and I'm thinking the next video is going to be the dyno video, so keep an eye out for that one. But until next time, that's it.